preservationists, public servants, architects, historians, and concerned citizens, on behalf of the Metro Nashville Historical Commission and as chair of that commission, I welcome you to the 45th Annual and first virtual Preservation Awards. After a year like no other, in terms of its challenges and difficulties, we have all come to a fuller appreciation for what is good and important to us as Nashvillians. High on that list of importance is remembering and preserving what has made our city what it is, as we find strength in the struggles of those who came before us and what they overcame. Cholera epidemics, calamitous events such as the 1918 train wreck or the 1927 flood, or periods of social upheaval such as the civil rights struggles of the 1960s. The term Nashville Strong is nothing new. For centuries, our strength has come forth in response to the challenges we have faced. Let us not forget that past, not even this past year, but rather learn and grow from it and keep it with us in ways that help us learn from those challenges and strive to be better. Our past is central to our strength and identity as a city that is forever changing yet distinctive and unique to the extent that we preserve it. Thank you, Mayor Cooper, for embodying that spirit as you and your administration have faced down and helped us overcome profound difficulties and challenges over the past 2 years, and have remained true to those things that are most important, including historic preservation. We appreciate you for your unwavering support and your effective leadership.
Thank you for that kind introduction, Dr. Bailey, and thank you for being chair of the Metro Historical Commission. And I am honored to join you for the 45th Annual Preservation Awards, and I'm grateful to everyone here for your commitment to preserving Nashville's history. I want to talk about historic 2nd Avenue today, and I want to start not with last December, but December of 1812. A major fire destroyed our city's business center on Market Street, which is now called 2nd Avenue. Rebuilding was an arduous task then, but Nashvillians came together, they rebuilt, they pressed on, and 2 centuries later, tragedy struck 2nd Avenue again. Innocent lives were spared, but the bombing attack damaged 40 businesses and displaced more than 400 residents. Now, with the help of the Metro Historical Commission and all of you, we are rebuilding 2nd Avenue once again. Let's preserve the authenticity and distinctive character of historic 2nd Avenue as we rebuild. Despite a difficult year, Nashville has grown. In 2020, we were the #1 U-Haul destination in the country, and we were recently named one of the nation's top destinations for millennials who are relocating, and it comes as no surprise. People want to live in distinctive places and to discover a sense of place that is rooted in history. They want a community where landmarks make us famous, but our neighbors make us great. And that is Nashville. Nashville's historic buildings and neighborhoods show us who we are and where we've come from. They also help us determine where we're going. It's been said that preservation engages the past in a conversation with the present over a mutual concern for the future, and that's exactly what we're doing in Nashville and what you're helping us do. From the Woolworth Building to the site of our women's suffrage rallies, Nashville historic spaces show us how we got here. And they remind us of what it will take to create a just, equitable community moving forward. I'm grateful to everyone here for all you do to preserve our past and plan for our future. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments, Mayor Cooper. We appreciate your support of historic preservation and the work of the Metro Historical Commission, so thank you. I'm Tim Walker, the Executive Director of the Metro Historical Commission, and thank you for joining us for our 45th Annual Preservation Awards Program and our first virtual awards program. Unfortunately, 2020 was a year we won't soon forget. It was a year of many challenges, especially for historic preservation, from an early March tornado which damaged and destroyed historic landmarks across the county, to May's derecho that took down trees, damaged homes, and caused power losses to over 130,000 households, followed by May's downtown riots that caused a fire to our downtown historic courthouse and damaged the storefronts downtown, ending in a Christmas Day bombing that affected the very oldest part of our city, all of which happened under the veil of COVID-19. Well, as Mayor Cooper and Chair Bailey noted, Nashvillians are resilient. We've overcome past challenges only to become stronger. Nashville strong. Although we lost a number of historic buildings in the March tornado, many buildings have been or are being repaired, including the Holly Street Fire Hall, which now has a new roof and opened only a few weeks ago. Our historic Metro Courthouse has new windows. Its exterior limestone has had graffiti removed and been cleaned, and most of the buildings affected by the 2nd Avenue bombing have been repaired, with all but one block of the street now open. And the buildings most affected by the bombing are stabilized and being assessed for repairs and reconstruction. In addition, recommendations for improvements to 2nd Avenue area that came out of the community meetings held by the Urban Land Institute and Metro Planning Commission will make it better than it was before. We have a lot to be thankful for. And the losses we've had over the last year make us cherish what remains even more. Under the mayor's leadership and working with Metro departments, we've been able to come together as a city to overcome these disasters and build a stronger community. Well, our Preservation Awards program, which began in 1973, its goal is to recognize the individuals, agencies, nonprofits, and institutions who have invested in our city and its rich history by rehabbing historic buildings and making them viable for future generations. In addition, the Historical Commission recognizes leadership in preserving Nashville's history and recognizes significant projects that enhance our city's unique architectural and cultural heritage. Since its beginning, over 400 awards have been given to individuals and institutions. And today, we'll get to add to that total and congratulate those that are added to the list. However, before we get started, I want to give a quick thank you to my commissioners, both the Metro Historical Commission and Metro Historic Zoning Commission, for their hard work and dedication to preserving our city's history and its historic buildings. And I want to thank my staff who tackle the everyday, daily work of the department. And finally, I want to give a special thanks to Scarlett Miles, the staff member who's in charge of this year's Preservation Awards, and Keith Durbin and his staff at the Metro Nashville Network, who made this virtual awards program possible. So thank you all. Now I'm going to hand off the program to Robbie Jones, one of the 3 judges this year who had the very difficult job of reviewing this year's projects and choosing winners. Thank you.
Good evening. I'm Robbie Jones, and it's been my pleasure to serve as a judge for this year's Preservation Awards, along with Claudette Steger and Brian Tibbs. As you may have heard, judging was a little different this year. Usually the judging team travels together, visiting each nominated property to view the work in person and within context. Although we couldn't travel as a group this year due to the pandemic, we visited the properties on our own, which allowed us the chance to spend as much time at a location as we liked. The 3 of us have served as judges before, and although we missed riding around together in a van, please know that this year's judging was no different than in the past. We still had the tough job of narrowing down the best projects from a stellar group of nominees. The fact that our task was difficult is encouraging, as it shows us that preservation has persevered despite the many challenges of the past year. Several nominated projects help tell the story of Nashville's resilience in the wake of the tornado that crossed through the county on March 3, 2020. Some of these projects involved extensive repairs, while others are new construction replacing properties completely lost to the storm. As rebuilding continues throughout the year, we expect to see more projects reflecting this spirit in next year's program. In addition, the judges would like to commend property owners who do not live in historic zoning overlays, but follow the Secretary of the Interior's guidelines regardless. We realize that this takes extra time and expense, and we wanted to commend their efforts. We're going to kick off the awards with the Infill category, where nominated projects include single-family homes and townhomes, ranging from individual projects to larger developments. Here are the nominees. An honorable mention goes to Elliott Row Homes. The Elliott Row Homes are part of a larger development that includes 18 infill townhomes plus adaptive reuse of the historic Elliott School building. Located on Madison Street between 6th and 7th Avenues, the row homes were constructed on the site of a former parking lot. The team worked closely with immediate neighbors and the Germantown Neighborhood Association to come up with a design and plan that worked well for the historic neighborhood, which we greatly appreciated. The resulting single-family homes are contextually sensitive and transition nicely from the corners into the neighborhood. Design details were influenced by the historic Elliott School, but are modern and not imitative. We think this is a great contemporary addition to the neighborhood, and it's a wonderful example of how design and development teams can work together with neighbors toward a common goal. Well done. A preservation award goes to 1901 Russell Street. When the Peters family lost their 1925 bungalow in the March 2020 tornado, they knew they wanted to rebuild on the same corner where they'd lived since 2007. Borrowing cues from the original home, Jason Feller designed a new house with many of the characteristics that gave the original much of its charm and appeal. With its wide, welcoming front porch, the Craftsman-style house incorporates the brick porch railing and eave brackets similar to the previous structure. The owners also salvaged and reused whatever they could. They repurposed bricks from the foundation for the interior fireplace and kept some of the original porch columns to reuse in the foyer. The fireplace mantel and dining table were milled from a walnut tree that was felled by the tornado. Like its predecessor, the new house anchors the corner beautifully and helps tell the story of this neighborhood's resilience. We could tell this infill project was treated carefully and lovingly from design to construction. Great job. A preservation award goes to 1903 Russell Street. Patrick Sullivan had lived in his home for 10 years before it was destroyed by the March 2020 tornado. Like many neighbors, he knew he wanted to rebuild, and he knew he wanted a new home that was very similar to the one he had loved and lost. Designed by Cheyenne Smith, the new design matches the style of the original Craftsman folk Victorian structure and maintains a similar footprint and historic fenestration, but constructed of modern materials. Some items from the original home were salvaged from the storm and reused, including the front doors and a clawfoot tub. We admired the modest scale of this project. It would have been tempting to build back something significantly larger. Instead, this new home embodies the spirit of putting back what was there before and honoring the scale of the neighborhood and adjacent homes. Terrific work.
I'm Jim Hubler, board member of the Metropolitan Historical Commission and president of the Nashville City Cemetery Association.
And I'm Lynn Maddox, vice chair of the Metro Historical Commission and past president of the Nashville City Cemetery Association. And we are here today to present the Fletch Coke Award.
Robert James Mather, winner of the Fletch Coke Award. Robert Mather was a fixture in the Nashville City Cemetery Association, where he was a longtime member of the board of directors and served as secretary for many years. As an avid gardener and community volunteer, he was a member, education chair, and past president of the Master Gardeners of Davidson County. A native of Springfield, Missouri, Mather attended Middle Tennessee State University when he studied broadcasting and started out as music director and DJ for campus radio station WMOT. After graduation, he was hired by CBS Songs and began his storied career in music publishing. Over 35 years, Mather worked consecutively for CBS Songs, EMI Blackwood Music, Screen Gems, Cole Gems Music, and EMI Music Publishing. He retired as EMI's Vice President of Administration in 2012, having endured numerous company buyouts and the ever-changing music industry. During his career in the Nashville music industry, Mather's affiliations included membership in the Country Music Association, National Academy of Recording Arts and Sciences, the Copyright Society of the South, and Broadcast Music Incorporated, BMI. He co-wrote the BMI award-winning song, Sexy Eyes, recorded by Dr. Hook, and he also contributed to the early organization and production of the annual Country Radio Seminars and its New Faces show. Mather's expertise and love of gardening greatly benefited Nashville's historic landscapes. Through his work with the Master Gardeners, he cultivated educational gardens at beloved historic sites, including Grassmere Historic Gardens at the Nashville Zoo and the historic Nashville City Cemetery. At Grassmere, he restored and maintained terraces of heirloom flowers, vegetables, and antique fruits and vines, as well as iris, rose, and herb beds. Mather nurtured historically appropriate flower gardens and bed graves at City Cemetery, managed invasive species, and advocated for the restorative planting of trees. Mather represented both the Master Gardeners and the Nashville City Cemetery on an episode of Volunteer Gardener, speaking about the designation of the cemetery as a certified arboretum by the Nashville Tree Foundation in June 2013. He was a fixture at the cemetery's annual Living History Tour as head of docents and managed countless volunteer workdays promoting the passion for gardening, history, and the cemetery to many members of the community. Mather's passion for historic gardening sites was infectious, and his reach was far. As an educator and leader with the Master Gardeners, he participated in numerous training sessions, sharing his knowledge and enthusiasm with new classes of volunteers. As a result, all Master Gardeners sites benefited from his energetic engagement with newcomers as he motivated and encouraged new members in their work with historic gardens and landscapes. Mather passed away unexpectedly on December 14, 2019. He is deeply missed, and so many of us are thankful for his friendship and many years of service. Although he is passed, his legacy lives on in the gardens he tended, in the many gardens he designed.
Hello, my name is Greg Mather. My sister Patty Eiselstein and I would like to thank the Davidson County Master Gardeners for nominating our brother Robert James Mather for this year's Fletch Coke Award and the Metropolitan Historical Commission for providing this honorable award. Sadly, our brother passed away December 14, 2019. When we were first contacted about our brother receiving this award, we were ecstatic that our brother was recognized for this award after seeing the history of the lady for which it's named, Fletch Coke, and the efforts she made to help in the preservation of the many Nashville and Davidson County historical landmarks. Since this year's Preservation Awards ceremony was to be done virtually, I was not sure what the attire would be to represent our brother. Those who knew Robert probably saw him 99% of the time wearing a plaid shirt. So in honor of him, I'm wearing one of several he had acquired and hung in his bedroom closet. Robert would be humbled by this award as he was not one to seek personal attention, but volunteered his time to enhance his knowledge and share in his interest. When asked to do a virtual meeting to recognize Robert, one of the questions was asked, did he go by Bob or Robert? My answer was that his given name was Robert, but most of his friends and family called him Bob. Some family members came up with the name of Bobbert as a compromise on addressing him. I'm not sure Bob really appreciated his third name, but it got his attention, and sometimes a look from him only a family member would understand. You know our brother, whether you called him Robert or Bob, he was mostly known as your friend, to his nieces and nephews as Uncle Bob, and to Patty and I as a brother. A little background on Bob. We all grew up in a conservative and churched environment where family comes first. Our parents had professional jobs and taught us to give back to the community through volunteer programs or through the church. Our home was a busy place, and we all helped out with the chores that our mother usually assigned. Taking out the trash, setting the table, washing the dishes, or helping with cooking our meals were some of the jobs that we had. Some of you knew who our brother, wondered where he received the interest in the outdoors and gardening. Our mother and grandmother always had gardens with vegetables and flowers. That's not where I give complete credit for Bob having a green thumb. This identifier came from when he was helping to prepare an evening or Sunday afternoon meal. Green peas from a can look anemic, so to enhance the presentation appeal, he had a green food coloring to the cooking peas, while also providing his first green thumb. Growing up in the 50s and 60s, joining the Scout programs was one of the first passages leading into adulthood. Bob completed this era of life working hard to attain the high rank of Eagle Scout. College brought on new challenges, and to help with expenses, he followed his love of music and radio, ending up as a radio host at Murfreesboro's country station, WMTS, under the name of Bob Davis. While working on a music management degree at Middle Tennessee State University, the school started their own radio station where he became the station's first program director. Bob was also the commander of his college fraternity, Sigma Nu. Graduating college, Robert landed a job in Nashville managing a music publishing company, where he managed the business under several company buyouts until his retirement. You can see from Bob's professional career that he continued to excel in whatever endeavor he tackled. So during his free time, Bob joined the Davidson County Master Gardeners to further enhance the development of his green thumb. Great at organizing, documenting, and volunteering, he held many positions in the organization. Helping to preserve Nashville and Davidson County's historical sites was one of several volunteer organizing and participation events he thoroughly enjoyed. Working with the many friends he made while in this organization. Bob is truly missed by friends and family, but we know he's using his talents in heaven working with God. Again, the family of Robert James Mather thanks the Davidson County Master Gardeners and the Metropolitan Historical Commission in recognizing our brother by awarding him the Fletch Coke Award.
The Metro Historical Commission is dedicated to the preservation and promotion of Nashville's history and architecture, and since 1973 has presented awards that recognize those preservation efforts. More recently, the Fletch Coke Award was created to preserve the history and landmarks of Nashville and Davidson County by recognizing someone whose tenacity, curious spirit, and excellence in historical research, writing, and promotion of Nashville's local history and historic places is worthy of such recognition. The definition of the Fletch Coke Award is the definition and essence of Michael Gray. Michael has been a leader in recognizing the history of Jefferson Street and the important role that rhythm and blues music has made to Nashville's music culture. Nashville is known for country music, and deservedly so, but Nashville is known as Music City, USA, and that includes all genres of music. During the late 1940s and early 1950s, Nashville wasn't just known for country music. It was a center for R&B and black gospel music because that's what was played on 50,000-watt WLAC. For a while, it was the most important R&B station in this country. There were important record labels such as Bullet, Excello, and Mashboro that recorded and promoted African-American music. From the mid-1940s into the 1960s, Nashville had a thriving live music scene on Jefferson Street for R&B music. Michael Gray stepped in and organized Nashville's long connection to rhythm and blues music in an exhibit, Night Train to Nashville, Music City Rhythm and Blues, 1945 to 1970, at the Country Music Hall of Fame. An album he co-produced, Night Train to Nashville, won him a Grammy. That exhibit and album led to a demand for venues where rhythm and blues could be heard live in Nashville. Michael also co-curated another exhibit, I Can't Stop Loving You, Ray Charles and country music, that demonstrated the intertwining of country and soul music. The heart of Nashville's R&B's heritage was on Jefferson Street. I say was because the building of the interstate wiped out that important center for live R&B music. Michael Gray stepped in and helped Lorenzo Washington and his Jefferson Street Sound Museum recognize, document, and celebrate the history of Jefferson Street. If Michael Gray had only co-curated that Night Train to Nashville exhibit and album and the Ray Charles exhibit, this award to him would have been well-deserved. But he did and continues to do a whole lot more. Michael works at the Country Music Hall of Fame and Museum and has helped curate the exhibit on Bob Dylan and the Nashville Cats, as well as Flying Saucers Rock and Roll, the cosmic genius of Sam Phillips. That tenacity, curious spirit, and excellence in historical research and writing continues to be on display at the Country Music Hall of Fame and Museum. Through public exhibits and his writing, Michael recognizes the musical and cultural interplay between country music and other genres. The Fletch Coke Award also honors someone who promotes Nashville's local history and historic places. And Michael does this whenever journalists come calling, as well as in the publication of his writings in the African American National Biography, the Encyclopedia of Country Music, the American Songwriter magazine, Nashville Scene, and many others. I have to say many others because it's a long line. Michael has roots in journalism. He was a reporter for the Nashville Banner and CMT, and a graduate degree in communications. That combination of journalism and scholarship makes the best kind of writer and scholar. I have been privileged to know Michael since his days at MTSU, and I am honored to present the Fletch Coke Award from the Metro Historical Commission to Michael Gray.
First, thank you to the Metro Historical Commission. I know Fletch Coke is a force for historic preservation in the community, and I am honored to be this year's recipient of the award that bears her name. And thank you to Don Cusick. I learned much in your music history course at MTSU way back when, and I appreciate all the encouragement you have given me ever since, and for all the kind words. I am fortunate that my livelihood intersects with my life's passion. I moved to Nashville in 1987. I quickly became obsessed with learning about the city's music history, especially parts of that history that remained in the shadows. I started collecting blues and soul records made in Nashville and researching the town's rhythm and blues scene. I knew I eventually wanted to do something with this information, perhaps write a magazine article, maybe someday even a book, whatever it took to spread the word about all of this wonderful music. What I didn't anticipate is that in 2002, 15 years after moving here, I would be given the opportunity to pursue this interest at the Country Music Hall of Fame and Museum. Shortly after I was hired there, Dan Cooper and I pitched Night Train to Nashville, Music City Rhythm and Blues, 1945 to 1970. And here's the beauty of it. Our bosses listened to our ideas, helped shape our plans, and enabled our staff to create a 5,000 square foot exhibit, a pair of double disc companion albums, 3 related books, dozens of panel discussions and concerts, and more. I could talk about Night Train all day. One of the great aspects about the museum is that it provides its historians and curators several platforms and outlets to tell the stories we want to tell. For the past 19 years, I've had the privilege to work on many other very meaningful projects, some of which Don already listed. I must credit the museum staff. Specifically, I want to express gratitude to my bosses, Kyle Young, Jay Orr, and Brenda Colliday. I wouldn't have received this award without their leadership and support. Before I wrap up here, let me say I'm indebted to all the musicians and songwriters who have given me the time of day. Thank you for letting me interview you. Thank you for trusting the museum with your precious photographs and objects. Thank you for trusting us to tell your story. Lastly, I want to give a heartfelt appreciation to my wife, Emily. You wouldn't believe the number of hours she has patiently listened to this music geek jabber on and on and on about my favorite albums, my favorite concerts, my favorite music books, my favorite music museums, my favorite music documentaries, my favorite music podcasts, my favorite independent record labels, my favorite left-handed guitarist, for goodness sake, even something like my favorite 1970s funk recordings from Belize. Sorry, honey, but I share this award with you.
Good evening. I'm Brian Tibbs. Next, we have the residential category. This category was extremely popular this year and the competition was intense. I'll start with honorable mentions. An honorable mention goes to 133-135 Bowling Avenue. This unusually sited residence has an interesting history. Constructed around 1930 as the 3603 Richland Avenue, in its earliest years contained an automobile garage on the first floor with a dwelling above. The property was later subdivided, and by 1935, the property, by then a duplex rental, was known as 133 Bowling Avenue. When Robert and Sarita Stewart purchased the property in September 2019, it was in poor condition and desperate need of some tender loving care. The location and condition of the building had stumped many interested buyers, and several had hoped to just demolish it. Undaunted and prepared for extensive interior and exterior repairs, the Stewarts took on the challenge, which ultimately included structural roof repairs, all new systems, and the addition of box gutters and downspouts to manage water flow, a project managed skillfully by Greg Davis and MCR Group. New landscaping and a circular driveway not only improved the curb appeal, but helped reestablish the residential context for the duplex and reinforce its place within the historic neighborhood. The up-down duplex provides some housing diversity for the Richmond West End neighborhood, and we're glad to see this unique property saved, renovated. Nice work. An honorable mention goes to 920 Lawrence Avenue. The home was in average condition when the Stackhouse family purchased the property in 2019 with plans to renovate and construction and dadu. As is typical of many preservation projects, once the work began, the challenges appeared. The team had hoped to remove the aluminum siding to reveal original wood siding that could be salvaged and painting. However, after removing the aluminum, the team discovered that the wood siding had rotted in many areas of the home and needed to be replaced. Additionally, the front porch and columns were not supported by any footers and were sinking and bowing as a result. The porch was carefully deconstructed with the brick and blocks set aside for the reconstruction. Footers were poured and the porch was safely rebuilt. The team also replaced the home's vinyl windows with Marvin Integrity windows. We appreciate the attention to detail of devoting to restoring the home's original exterior. The quality of work, choice of materials, and investment decisions have ensured that it is structurally sound and will serve the family and more for many decades. Terrific work. An honorable mention goes to 1105 South Douglas Avenue. This large bungalow features a lot of visual interest and fine detail work, including a unique bay window, beautiful brackets, tapered pairs of columns, native Tennessee limestone porch piers, and a variety of original window sizes and arrangements. When planning their recent renovation and addition project, homeowners Paul Collins and Alexandra Blah wanted to make sure that the original silhouette of the house was maintained with as little impact made to the massing as possible. Designed by Allard Ward Architects, the result is a gently sloping story-and-a-half structure surrounded by a wraparound porch. Specifically, the roof was designed to terrace down to the yard in an incremental fashion as to honor the low-slung, deep eaves of the historic house. We appreciate the modest size of the addition. It's a great example of how careful design and economy of space can make a huge impact. The addition continues the visual interest of the original home, but is so carefully hidden. Great work. An honorable mention goes to 1726 Linden Avenue. Constructed in the 1920s, this Tudor-style home had fallen into such disrepair that it was not in a livable state. Several large holes in the facade and roof had allowed water infiltration and intrusions by animals and plants. Several places in the first floor had rotted through to the basement, and the structure was in grave danger of being lost to neglect. Being an unconditioned, open-air structure for several years took a great toll on the integrity of the historic elements. All of the windows had to be replaced, and much of the exterior walls had to be painstakingly dismantled and rebuilt because of the major water damage that had permeated the walls. Along with extensive repairs, the project included the construction of a rear addition. While the addition shows influences of the Tudor style, the changes in materials and the stepbacks along the elevation differentiate the addition from the original house, allowing the restoration of the original stone structure to shine. This is a remarkable transformation. Looking at the property today, it's hard to believe this home was once in danger. Congratulations on a job well done to Linus Castignani and Allard Ward Architects who saw this home's potential. An honorable mention goes to 1800 Forest Avenue, built in 1907. This Victorian college has had significant interior and exterior renovations over the years, including the addition of aluminum and vinyl exterior siding. When Aaron and Sean Keiss purchased this home in 2006, it was an unfinished house flip, but the couple took on the challenge of completing the many abandoned repairs, including carefully repairing the original double-hung windows. Like many home renovations, it was a labor of love spread out over the years. When the layers of exterior cladding were damaged by the March 2020 tornado, the Keisses enlisted the help of JAC Construction to address exterior repairs, including the historically inaccurate facade. Under aluminum, vinyl, and asbestos transite shingles, the team uncovered the original wood siding. Unfortunately, it had been too badly damaged to retain, so masonry siding was installed to match the look of the original. Using old survey photos as guidance, the trim was restored and rebuilt, and the facade was restored to an historic appearance. This included removing the large picture window, installing a pair of double-hung windows, restoring the original front door and transom window, and replacing piers with full-height columns on the porch. Many home preservations take place in stages, one project at a time. We admired the thoughtfulness and the amount of work put into this home over the years. It sets a great example for homeowners. Great job. An honorable mention goes to 1915 Blair Boulevard. The recent renovation of the Cole Ballard and Michael Brody's 1918 1 story stone craftsman bungalow included new side and rear additions, as well as a garage-detached accessory dwelling unit. Care for the original home included restoration of the intricate stonework, eaves, and porch details. The team also had to remove non-historic additions, some with features that were structurally unsound. Designed by Alward Architects, the side addition takes advantage of the unusually wide lot, but keeps the original home to the primary focus. While materials clearly differentiate the new additions from the original home, design details such as the 9 light prairie pattern windows provide continuity across the project. The low open stone wall around the porch is new, but it's complementary to the craftsman aesthetic and gives the porch a welcoming and secure feeling. Although the rear addition is large, it is carefully concealed. We thought the renovations and additions were well executed and we're glad to see the stonework shine. Nice work. An honorable mention goes to 2224 Blair Boulevard. This house is a rare find. The historic craftsman-style bungalow has been owned by the same family since its construction, passed down through the generations until it was acquired by Dream Inc. in 2017. It features the rare amenity of a vacant lot next door that has been part of the property since its original purchase. The goal of the project was to restore the significant elements of the existing house while stabilizing the structure, increasing the energy efficiency, and adding on new square footage and amenities attractive to the modern family. The home's most striking feature in its generous elevated front porch, wrapped in a stone-based wall and topped with tapered wood columns. As part of the renovation, the tongue-and-groove porch ceiling was removed and the sagging lintel was replaced with a robust new beam and the ceiling reinstalled. Other highlights of the project include refurbishment of the original windows and surrounding trim. On the interior, distinctive elements such as trim, fireplace surrounds, and exposed stone chimneys were preserved and rehabilitated. Following the wide footprint of an earlier addition, the varied step backs helped minimize the large addition from the street. Great work. And now, Claudette Steger will continue with awards in the residential category.
Continuing with the residential category, a preservation award goes to 737 Benton Avenue. The renovation and addition to this 1890 Queen Anne in Woodland and Waverly is stunning. Originally a single-family home, the house was converted to a duplex sometime before 1980. By 1987, it was converted back to a single-family residence and would have several additions and smaller-scale bathroom renovations over the years. The house had been lovingly cared for by previous owners, but it was time to upgrade the entire house with a full rework of all electrical, plumbing, and mechanical systems. Most of the historic front rooms were restored to their original layout with finely detailed historic features like staircases, trim, doors, and mantels. Several previous rear additions were removed to create a more sensitive and properly scaled addition that provides a better connection to the exterior spaces as well as a large modern kitchen. The quality of materials and construction are top-notch. The exterior masonry had previously been painted and was repainted to represent the original brick color as closely as possible. We thought the contemporary design of the addition was a nice complement to the historic home, creating the appearance of the home's natural evolution. Excellent work. A preservation award goes to 1800 Holly Street. Deborah and Michael Geiger's Craftsman House in Lockland Springs has evolved slowly over the years with a garage dado in 2014 and a modest addition in 2016. While the property has been affected at least 3 times by tornadic events, the March 2020 tornado left the home with its most significant damage. The entire top front portion of the home was blown apart, allowing rainwater to touch every part of the structure for 2 hours during the unrelenting storm. The Geigers never questioned if to rebuild and come home, but instead how to preserve and even improve the property for not only their family, but for owners in years to come. As part of the rebuild, exterior and interior doors, windows, trim, and multiple built-in cabinets and bookcases were preserved, restored, and reused as much as possible. Repairs to the roof and attic afforded the team a chance to replace joists and rafters with larger sizes to meet code requirements and to provide much-needed support, as well as finishing the footprint of the attic that was already in place. The team was able to restore the original roof line to its original state, and the interior footprint of the attic was unchanged with only a few walls added to finish out the space. This project was one of our favorites. It's a terrific example of resilience in building back, but better and stronger. Great work. A preservation award goes to 3606 Central Avenue. When Laura and Rob Riley purchased this 1915 Craftsman in 2007, minimal changes had been made to the home. Over the years, they made gradual updates and changes to the home, including finishing out the attic for an art studio, 2 bedrooms, and a bath. With every project, they committed to restoring everything that could be saved and matching the original if something could not be saved. More recently, they added a modest 2-story addition and screen porch to the home. Rob Riley has completed much of the restoration work himself, including removing, completely restoring, and reinstalling all of the home's original windows and doors, which is a remarkable feat of patience and determination. Any replacements in the home, such as tile, have been carefully selected to match the original, and materials have been reused elsewhere in the home when possible. For example, when rafters were removed for the new master bedroom, Riley reused them as pine flooring. The couple's commitment to their home is apparent, and Rob Riley's work on the home is truly admirable. We were particularly intrigued by the reuse of so many materials within the home. It's a great example of sustainability of preservation. Excellent job. A preservation award goes to 3946 Woodlawn Drive. Built around 1935, this grand Tudor revival is hard to miss from driving along Woodlawn. Previous additions to the home were completed in the 1980s and 1990s. This project included a 1-story addition as well as a 1-story wing designed to connect the main house with 2 modest existing outbuildings and to create a small courtyard. We found the new contemporary addition to be harmonious and well done. It's respectful of the history of the structure, yet it's distinctive and clearly differentiated from the main house. The design is elegant and restrained and does not compete with the heavy, bold, character-defining details of the original home. When driving by this residence, one notices little change to the street-facing image. Enhanced landscaping and a new driveway and spacious urban garden assist in making this renovation an appropriate and sensitive one while accomplishing the owner's functional and aesthetic goals. This project also included interior renovations to address some of the structural deficiencies and overall problems with the systems. Terrific work. A preservation award goes to 5335 Stanford Drive. This project involved a full exterior restoration and renovation of the National Register-listed Dr. Cobb Pilcher House, also known as Deepwood. Additions constructed in 1988 complemented the original design and kept the home's integrity intact. For this project, A new entry awning was rebuilt to reflect the original design, and the brick was fully repaired and tuck-pointed. For us, however, the project was all about the windows. They are a critical, character-defining feature of this 1936 international-style design by Nashville architect Edwin Keeble. The windows are an integral part of the design, and without them, the house simply would not be the same. So we were thrilled to learn that the original steel casement windows were painstakingly restored, glazed, and refinished. Deepwood is an important landmark in Nashville and is one of our finest examples of the international style, a rarity for our area. We cannot say it enough. Historic windows matter, and the attention to detail paid to restoring these windows is incredible. Great job.
Welcome again to our first virtual annual Metro Historical Preservation Awards. I'm Monet Bell, a member of the Historical Commission, and currently serve as chair of the Historic Zoning Commission. Personally, I think fondly of Ann Eden and had the sincere pleasure of serving several years on the commission with her. I consider her one of my mentors in historic preservation, and it is a true honor to recognize and acknowledge her many years of committed and honorable community service with the 2021 Achievement Award. Ann Eden was a vibrant, beloved supporter of both the Metro Historical Commission and the Historic Zoning Commission, beginning with her appointment to the Historical Commission in 1975. She served on the MHC until 2009, and for 25 of those years, she also served on the MHZC, chairing that commission for nearly 20 years, as I stand on her shoulders. Her decades of service to the commissions was an amazing and generous civic commitment. Although her terms with the commissions ended in 2009, Ann continued to support the work of the office as a co-founder of the Metro Historical Commission Foundation, the nonprofit friends group of the MHC. She served as the organization's chair from its formation in 2011 until her unexpected death on January 2, 2020. A Nashville native, Ann earned a Bachelor of Science from Middle Tennessee State University. After graduation, she worked with Martha White Flour and later the Kroger Company, developing and testing recipes for their products and writing cookbooks. A well-respected consumer advocate from 1976 to 1984, she held positions with the state of Tennessee as the Director of Consumer Affairs and Assistant Commissioner of the Department of Commerce and Insurance. In 1985, Ann joined the Beeman Automotive Group, quickly becoming one of its top administrators. She served as Vice President of Customer Relations for almost 30 years until her passing. Among her countless civic engagements, Ann was a member of the Daughters of the American Revolution and held leadership positions with the American Lung Association of Tennessee and the Vanderbilt Kennedy Center for Research on Human Development. Along with her late husband, Glenn, she was a longtime leader in the Nashville wine auction, having chaired many of its fundraising benefits to fund the fight against cancer. For her support and leadership, she was named Board Member Emeritus. For 45 years, Ann was a great champion for the Historical and Historic Zoning Commissions and their staff. She believed strongly in their common mission to document history, save and reuse buildings, and make the public more aware of the importance of preservation. Through her service, she helped advance the cause of preservation in Metro Nashville and supported projects as diverse as cemetery restoration, interpretive signage, cultural landscape, and historic structures reports. Nominations to the National Register of Historic Places, and studies ranging from DNA analysis to the economic impacts of historic preservation, all of which have greatly enriched our knowledge and understanding of our local history. Anne Eden, truly a historic woman. We and our city are extremely grateful for her many extraordinary years of service to the preservation community. And here to accept the award on her behalf is her daughter, Abby Blankenship.
Thank you so much for honoring my mom, Anne, in this special way. She truly loved Nashville and wanted it to have a legacy of history, architectural integrity, and structures that were meaningful to future generations. She was a true native Nashvilleian as a descendant of Timothy de Mumriam, who's one of the first settlers of Nashville, and grew up on Stockwell Street, where most of her family lived within a 2-block radius. Her interest in historic preservation was sparked by John Connolly, who was a longtime Davidson County historian and a past honoree of this same award, among others. He was my parents' high school English teacher from sophomore to senior year, and they became lifelong friends. John grew up in Germantown. He was a key leader of historic preservation of that neighborhood and even founded the Germantown Festival. John and his passion for history was a huge influence, and together they strived to help the city grow while still honoring its past. Anne was proud to serve on both the Metro Historical Commission and the Historic Zoning Commission for many years. She would be so thrilled to receive this honor, which I accept for her with gratitude and pride. But instead of relishing in this achievement, she would prefer to get started on the next exciting project with all of you. Thank you so much.
Hi, my name is Chris Cotton, and I am a member of the Metro Historical Commission, and I also happen to be the president of the Friends of Fort Negley. With me today is Dr. Lee Williams. He's also a member of the board of the Friends of Fort Negley, as well as a member of the Metro Historic Zoning Commission. We're here today to present Dr. Jane Landers with the Metro Historical Commission's Achievement Award. The Achievement Award is given to an individual in recognition of her extraordinary leadership in preserving Nashville's history, either through research and writing or through advocacy and raising public awareness of history and historic preservation. And Dr. Jane Landers certainly fits that bill.
Jane Gilmer Landers is a historian of colonial Latin America and the Atlantic world, specializing in the history of Africans and their descendants in those worlds. She is the Gertrude Conway Vanderbilt Professor of History at Vanderbilt University and has been documenting the history of slavery for more than 2 decades. Dr. Landers directs the Slave Society's Digital Archive, which she founded in 2003. Hosted at Vanderbilt University, the Digital Archive preserves endangered ecclesiastical and secular documents related to slavery in the Atlantic world and holds approximately 700,000 images. Dr. Landers has written a number of works on Africans in the Atlantic world, including the award-winning monographs, Black Society in Spanish Florida and Atlantic Creoles in the Age of Revolutions. Her research has been supported by fellowships from the Guggenheim Foundation, the National Endowment for the Humanities, the British Library Endangered Archives Program, and more. Additionally, she has consulted on museum exhibits, documentaries, and film. In 2015, Dr. Landers was named to the 20-member committee of UNESCO's International Scientific Committee of the Slave Route Project as the only representative from the United States. Realizing that there were no recognized slave routes in the U.S. and that she was uniquely positioned to use her vast scholarship to help change this, she committed to creating an inventory of potentially eligible sites and then assisting local groups through the nomination process. Nashville's historic Fort Negley was identified as one of the potentially eligible sites. Working closely with a team of graduate students, NAACP Nashville and Friends of Fort Negley Park, Dr. Landers guided the successful nomination of Fort Negley to the Slaves Routes program. On May 21st, it was officially announced that the historic Fort Negley had been designated a Site of Memory by UNESCO. Fort Negley is now one of nearly 50 sites across the world, recognized as being fundamental to helping the world understand and fully acknowledge the injustices of slavery. From August to December 1862, more than 2,700 conscript laborers constructed the Union Fort, which was the largest inland masonry fortification built during the Civil War. These laborers were free blacks or were contraband who had escaped enslavement and sought protection with Union forces occupying the city. Their descendants later formed Nashville's historically black neighborhoods, many nearby, and their legacies endure to this day. Dr. Lander's dedication to uncovering enslavement history through her scholarship, research, and leadership helped preserve Fort Negley and achieve international recognition for the community's lesser-known black history. Many in today's local African-American community refer to this space as hallowed ground. The UNESCO nomination acknowledges the significance of this physical site, as well as the intangible, emotional, and cultural ties to its history. While Fort Negley teaches about the pain and tragedy of slavery, it also tells about resistance, resilience, recovery, and celebrates contributions of the free and enslaved to Nashville and the nation's history. Along with Fort Negley, Dr. Landers has successfully shepherded nominations for sites in Florida, Texas, Maryland, Virginia, and Michigan for designation as UNESCO Sites of Memory.
So today, we would like to present the Achievement Award to Dr. Jane Landers.
Well, I just would like to thank the Metro Historical Commission and all my friends in the community for giving me this wonderful award. I am really deeply honored and pleased and happy, and I want to thank everybody for their confidence. It's been a long time I've been working with Fort Negley, and it seems like I was meant to because I had a wonderful student in my first class on African history, and it was Eleanor Fleming. And for her paper for my class, she wrote about her ancestors building this place. And of course, she was a stellar student, went on to become a physician, and is back with us now in Meharry. And when I began bringing other students out here, that's been also about 10 years. We were doing it in a class on history and slavery. And ever since that first class, we've been coming in groups and doing research on the place in the Metro Historical Commission archives and so on. And out of that, I decided that when I was finally nominated for the UNESCO Slave Route Commission, that this was an important place that needed to be memorialized. And it happened to be about the time that there were some ideas about putting a hotel on this place, and yet we hadn't done the archaeology for all of the people that died and were buried here unmarked. And so I hired one of my graduate students, Angela Sutton, who has since graduated and become part of the board of the Friends of Fort Negley, and she helped me prepare the proposal that we submitted to UNESCO to have it put on the designated slave route. And it came just in time because the plans for the hotel were then finished, and this site is now, I think, safe. We still have a lot more research to do on it, and I'm happy to be part of that effort, and I just want to thank everybody for this great honor.
As always, the Monuments and Memorials category is power-packed. A preservation award goes to Thompson-Collingsworth Davis Cemetery. The Thompson-Collingsworth Davis Cemetery was established on June 2, 1791, with the burial of John Thompson on property he had acquired through a land grant in 1789. When volunteers with the Davidson County Cemetery Survey visited the site in April 2000, the cemetery was overgrown, unfenced, and there was a for sale sign found on the property. The survey team rushed to ensure that the site was legally identified as a cemetery, and word about its condition began to spread among descendants. In 2005, descendants met to clear the cemetery of brush and heavy overgrowth, preparing the site for study by archaeologist Dan Allen. This led to the location of 25 graves, most marked with native stones. Through exhaustive research, the boundaries were identified, and descendants nationwide helped to fund and install a split rail fence. In November 2016, the Sons of American Revolution conducted a grave marking ceremony for Private Edward Collingsworth. Once listed among Historic Nashville's Nashville 9 Endangered Sites list, the Thompson-Collinsworth-Davis Cemetery is an example of perseverance and community and the importance of caring for small, private cemeteries. From local historians and volunteers to descendants spread far and wide, many hands have come together to care for this cemetery. Friends and family members have found common bond through research, cemetery workdays, and financial support to protect and maintain this valuable piece of history. Terrific work. A preservation award goes to Percy Warner LA Steps. Designed by noted architect and landscape designer Bryant Fleming and constructed by Works Progress Administration craftsmen during the 1930s, the Percy Warner Park, LA is a stunning structure comprised of mortared limestone columns, steps, terraces, and curving walls, connecting the scenic views of the park's formal entrance with the rustic nature of its vast trail system. The LA is well loved and well used, and decades of harsh weather along with wear and tear have taken their toll on the iconic LA. The historic stonework was severely damaged and the architectural integrity of the masonry was long challenged. In 2019, Friends of Warner Parks undertook a campaign to stop the deterioration and restore the historic structure to its original intent. In partnership with Metro Parks and Recreation, not only was this a beautification project, but it was a successful engineering feat that addressed structural integrity and critical drainage and erosion concerns around the site. The project also included a new landscape design plan to reestablish natural woodlands in the original view shed and to nurture native species landscaping. Simply put, this project is simply beautiful. The craftsmanship of the stonework is excellent, and we know that the remarkable feat of engineering will keep the LA safe and stable for many decades ahead. This project is a terrific example of public-private partnership supported by funding from hundreds of community members that has carefully and lovingly restored a beloved Nashville treasure. Incredible job.
Good evening, I'm Davis Acker. I'm a member of the Historical Commission, and I'm excited to present the Commissioner's Award to the Nashville Retrospect. Founded by Alan Forcum and launched in 2009, the Nashville Retrospect was a monthly newspaper devoted to Nashville nostalgia and history, featuring reprints of long-forgotten news, vintage photographs, essays by local historians, remembrances by older Nashvillians, and a calendar of history-related events. The broadsheet newspaper ran until December of 2020. Each monthly issue highlighted news stories from this month in history, as well as original pieces by freelance writers. Published by and for lovers of Nashville history, the Retrospect printed contributions by well-known scholars alongside personal narratives, creating an equal space for professional and amateur historians to share their knowledge, experience, and passion for local history. Alan and his team utilized city and state archives to source articles and photographs from over 230 years of the city's history. They scoured microfilm and maps and photographs and files to carefully curate and painstakingly piece together each issue. At any point in time, the news of the day can be humorous, joyful, informative, scandalous, or deeply troubling. The team did not shy away from sharing the true news of the past, even when it was difficult for the modern audience. The Retrospect was as thought-provoking as it was fun to read, and it asked readers to engage with history in a very unique way. The Nashville Retrospect was available by subscription and at select newspaper stands in Davidson and surrounding Tennessee counties. As a paid publication, circulation peaked at around 12,000 monthly, including countless copies donated to schools, colleges, archives, and the Nashville Public Library system. Along with publishing the Retrospect, Alan has given numerous presentations to community groups and schools. His talks focus on everything from the history of flooding in Nashville to his motivation for starting the Retrospect, which began with his research of his historic home and neighborhood. Additionally, he designed and donated a map of civil rights sit-in sites in Nashville to the Nashville Public Library Foundation. In 2011, the Society of Tennessee Archivists recognized Alan with the John H. Thweatt Archival Advancement Award, and in 2014, the National Society, Daughters of the American Revolution, recognized him and the Retrospect with its Historic Preservation Recognition Award. Although the Nashville Retrospect printed its last issue in December 2020, the group remains committed to promoting Nashville history and heritage through social media, a podcast series, and an electronic newsletter called the Nashville Retrospect Dispatch. The Retrospect continues to offer a unique look at the city's past through dynamic new projects, including the colorful and informative Nashville History Map and the newly debuted Nashville Retrospect Conversations webinar series. We're sure more ideas are in the works, and we can't wait to see what's next. Here to accept the award for the Nashville Retrospect is its founder, Alan Forcum. Congratulations.
Thank you, Commissioner Acker. My sincere gratitude goes to the Metropolitan Historical Commission for this recognition, which is a real honor in light of past and present award recipients. Unfortunately, there's not enough time to name the many knowledgeable people who have contributed to the Nashville Retrospect over the years. A few who helped make the Retrospect what it is include Paul Clements, Mike Slate, Debbie Cox, Tom Henderson, Bobby Lovett, George Zepp, Beth Odell, Clinton Holloway, and the late Larry Brinton. The Retrospect would also not have been possible without local institutions such as the Nashville Public Library, Metro Archives, and the Tennessee State Library and Archives. Thanks also to my family, friends, and colleagues who have been and continue to be supportive and encouraging of our work. I started the Nashville Retrospect with the idea that republishing old newspaper articles from the city's past could make for an interesting and entertaining read, and it is definitely that. But for me, after years of research into local history, it has become much more. I have learned that knowing about the struggles and the triumphs of past Nashvillians, of fellow human beings who walked the same ground we walk today, can make us better individuals, better neighbors, and better citizens. That is why I'm so grateful to all the local historians, archivists, genealogists, and organizations that are dedicated to preserving and promoting what is truly our shared history. Thank you.
The Metro Historical Commission is dedicated to preserving and honoring history in Nashville. An important part of that Nashville history is the history of the music, the musicians, and the music industry of Nashville. Joe Chambers has played an important part of this historical preservation. Joe, through his creation of and establishment of the Musicians Hall of Fame, honors those outside the spotlight, the sound behind the songs, the musicians behind the music. Behind every musical superstar are musicians. Joe Chambers has dedicated his life to preserving and honoring the musicians, especially studio musicians. Joe started life in Columbus, Georgia, and moved to Tennessee in 1978. He came for the music, and he became involved in the music and the music industry. Joe has been a producer and a songwriter. He has had songs recorded by George Jones, Tammy Wynette, Randy Travis, B.J. Thomas, and others. He opened a chain of music stores, Chambers Guitars, and this is where the seeds were planted for the Musicians Hall of Fame. Through Joe's work in the music industry and his guitar stores, Joe met and became friends with musicians. If a big star came into his store, everybody recognized him or her. But a great musician who had played on hit recordings was not recognized. Joe did not feel that was right. Music is the root word of musicians, so if you're going to honor the music and the stars of that music, you should honor those who make and are making that music. In 2003, Joe Chambers bought some property on 6th Avenue South and began the process of turning an old building into a Hall of Fame. On June 9th, 2006, the Musicians Hall of Fame opened. In every great story, there is adversity. Behind every great man are setbacks to overcome. In 2010, the Musicians Hall of Fame had a setback and Joe faced adversity. His building was taken over to make way for the Nashville Convention Center, but it was not the end of the story. In 2013, a new Musicians Hall of Fame opened in the Municipal Auditorium, an historic building where a number of stars and musicians had performed. Joe Chambers is a dreamer and a builder. His dream was to preserve and honor the musicians who make the music, not the stars, although the stars are important, but the guitar players, the bass players, the keyboard players, the fiddlers, the drummers, the horn players, the string players, and all those who play an instrument that captures the heart and soul of music. Music is universal, so Joe did not limit the Hall of Fame to Nashville musicians. The studio musicians of Detroit, who gave us the sound of Motown. The studio musicians of Memphis, who gave us early rock and roll. The studio musicians of Los Angeles, who gave us the West Coast sound. The musicians of Philadelphia, who gave us the Philadelphia sound. And the great instrumentalists who did not sing but played are all honored here. The first inductions into the Musicians Hall of Fame came in 2007. There have been more since that time. Today, the Musicians Hall of Fame has 9,000 square feet of space with displays where we can see some of what we've heard. We can see recording facilities, vocal booths, learn about engineers and producers. Visitors can see and experience the scenes behind the scene. All of that music and all of those musicians are honored in Nashville, Music City, USA. And it is appropriate that the Musicians Hall of Fame is in Nashville. Nashville has musical treasures. Two of them are Joe Chambers and the Musicians Hall of Fame for their contributions to preserve, protect, and honor those behind the songs. The stars outside the spotlight, and backstage and offstage scenes behind the music. Joe, I am honored to present you an award from the Metro Historical Commission honoring those behind the sound of music. So this is for Joe Chambers for what he and the Musicians Hall of Fame have done for Nashville and for music.
Well, Don, I think you were a writer. Man, I didn't realize how important I was, or what I had done. I know you have, evidently, and I needed those talents to make me sound like I'm somebody, and you did a good job, so I appreciate it. I'll say that the Hall of Fame opened up June of 2006. We did have our first induction ceremony the following year after we had time to get nominations. People often ask, how do you get nominated? Well, the first year, we had to send out ballots to well-known musicians and producers who gave their opinion of who they thought should be inducted. After the first year, the Musicians Union, AFM in New York, started to allow all members to cast their ballots if they'd like to. So all of those nominations go into a pool. They stay there until at what time that person might be inducted. We try to keep it, as you said, we're located in Nashville, and we should be. I think the Rock Hall ought to be here, to be honest with you. But we do cover all different genres of music, and that's been that was a lot of fun to go all over the country. Luckily, we started just in time to catch a lot of the great players before they all passed away, and we acquired the actual instruments that were used on so many of those great records. We've got a little more than 9,000 square feet. Now, what you're referring to was the Grammy Gallery that both of our dear friend Mike Kerb is really responsible for. Mike told the Grammys about this museum, and they sent representatives here and asked if we would partner with them, and we were more than thrilled to do so. And we have a over 9,000 square foot Grammy Gallery. If you've been to the one in LA, it's very similar to that one, and that was thanks to Mike Kerb. He's been a really big supporter of the museum, and it wouldn't be what it is today without him. Matter of fact, when the eminent domain little incident happened, the first phone call I got when we didn't know where we were going was from you, on Mike's behalf, I believe, which gave us a place to go until we were able to figure out where we were going to end up, which is here at the Municipal Auditorium, the historic Municipal Auditorium now. And And we'll never forget that either. That was a great phone call to get at kind of a dark moment. This certainly was, I guess you could say, was my deal, but it did not happen with just me. It happened, a lot of people had a lot to do with it, our staff here. So one person was certainly not responsible, but I accept this on behalf of my family and everybody that have given so much. Matter of fact, when I used to work for CBS, I met a lady, Kay Smith. She's been here.
Yes.
The day we opened, she retired from CBS, and she's been here as a volunteer ever since. So certainly wouldn't be the same without Kay either. So once again, I want to thank you very much.
Well, thank you. And I could have said a whole lot more, but I've kept it short. This man has done a great deal.
Go ahead.
Once again, I'm Commissioner Mené Bell. I have sincerely enjoyed attending multi-years of the Nashville Conference on African American History and Culture throughout the years, and I'm very pleased to present the Commissioner's Award to this beloved institution. For 40 years, the annual Nashville Conference on African American History and Culture has celebrated the heritage and achievements of African American individuals and institutions in Tennessee's past. Initiated by a small group of history professionals, this beloved convention of scholarship and camaraderie offers robust programming, publications, and a prime platform for history enthusiasts to share their research, while also welcoming all who seek knowledge and a memorable experience. On September 9, 1981, the local conference on Afro-American culture and history was conceived by local historians Bobby L. Lovett and Lois C. McDougall of Tennessee State University, May Dean Eberling of the Metro Historical Commission, and Linda T. Wynn of the Tennessee Historical Commission. Over the years, papers and presentations sourced from historians and other locales have heightened the conference's reach, impact, and academic stature. Cultural entertainment, music, and art are often favorite components of the conference, which has featured performances by the Fisk University's Jubilee Singers and Stagecrafters, the TSU Meister Singers, and the Whites Creek High School Marching Band, as well as the Princely Players and the Fairfield Four, and has showcased the talents of visual artists, including William Edmondson, Aaron Douglas, Francis Thompson, and Greg Ridley. Furthermore, each conference contributes new research to the field of African American history through scholarly presentations and academic authorship of profiles highlighting individuals and institutions significant to Tennessee's history. In honor of the conference's 15th anniversary, Profiles of African Americans in Tennessee was published in 1996. In total, over 290 performances and papers have been presented, and over 130 profiles have been published since 1981. Renamed the Conference on African American History and Culture in 2003, the event continues to grow and draw in participants from all walks of life. For its 40th year, the conference welcomed over 200 attendees to its first virtual program. Established as an expanded digital edition of the Profiles book and launched a new website filled with 4 decades of archives. Over the years, the conference has received many accolades. In 1990, the American Association of State and Local History awarded the conference a certificate of commendation. The award, which recognizes special projects throughout the United States, was announced at the National Association's annual meeting in Washington, D.C. in 2005. The Tennessee Historical Commission recognized the conference with a certificate of merit. 40 years after the first gathering, the conference is as relevant and important today as Nashville and the United States as a whole work to recognize and celebrate the past contributions of African Americans to the nation's rich history. Today, accepting the award on behalf of the Nashville Conference on African American History and Culture is Linda Wynn. As a co-founder, she has witnessed its growth from an idea into a preeminent Nashville tradition. Congratulations to all who have contributed to its historical past and future.
I would like to thank the Metro Historical Commission and Commissioner Monet Bell for presenting this award to the African American Nashville Conference on African American History and Culture. Who would have thought almost 41 years ago now that when we started back in 1981 that this conference would have gone on for 40 years. But it was to the foresight of Dr. Bobby Lovett, Lois C. McDougall of Tennessee State University, and Lois Madine Eberling of the Metro Historical Commission that we began this journey trying to bring the African American history and culture to the broader Nashville community. It was, we started out in one room at Tennessee State University, downtown campus on the Avon Williams campus, and now we have moved to the main auditorium. And over the last 40 years, we have had more than 300 attendees at each conference. So it is with great honor that I represent the Planning Committee of the African American Conference of Nashville. They put in a great deal of work in trying to bring this conference to the Nashville community, and it is on behalf of that committee that I accept this award. It is indeed an honor and a pleasure to be affiliated with this conference for the last 40 years. And again, I would like to thank you on behalf of the Nashville Conference of African American History and Culture.
Let's continue with the commercial category. We can all agree that the investments we make in our home is a worthy endeavor, but what about our workspace? Each of these property owners has invested financially, physically, and emotionally into their beloved commercial properties, and it shows through with each project. Each building was treated with tremendous care and concern. From adaptive reuse to meticulous rehabilitation, this small group of projects was truly exceptional. A preservation award goes to 209 3rd Avenue North. This 5-story Victorian Romanesque commercial building was constructed around 1892 and served as a furniture store for different firms for over 80 years before Boots Randolph purchased it in 1977. Randolph renovated it and operated a nightclub here until 1994. The current owners began renovation in earnest in 2016. The most recent work included a rooftop addition and reworking of the 3rd Avenue entrance to remove block and stucco and favor a design that better complements the historic details of the upper floors. But the most remarkable part of the project is the detailed restoration of the facade. The windows on the upper 4 floors of the property had been boarded up since at least the mid-1970s, and there was a thick carbon crust covering most of the original masonry work. In addition to the boarded windows and carbon crust, years of neglect had led to minor structural issues, mainly along the large pieces of sandstone that support the window ledges. To restore the facade, the team tested more than 10 products to clean the carbon crust before finding a product that left zero discoloration or pitting, and custom windows made to fit the original window openings have brought the life back to the building. To top it off, the original twin gables above the parapets were rebuilt using historic photographs as a guide. From bottom to top, this is an excellent example of facade restoration, and the transformation is truly remarkable. Amazing work. Our preservation award goes to 225 Polk Avenue. Formerly the Ben West Library, 225 Polk Avenue is one of the finest examples of new formalism in Nashville. Designed by Nashville architect Bruce Crabtree and opened in 1965, it's simply iconic. After the library relocated to Church Street in 2001, the building served temporary functions for Metro government, but mainly sat vacant and disused for years until 2017, when it was purchased by William W. Hastings, David A. Bailey, and David M. Powell, with the intent to restore the original structure and give the building new life as creative office space. Throughout the project, the team remained committed to the return of the building's original intent. For example, the southern facade included temporary precast panels, which, according to the original drawings, were intended to be replaced with glass at some point in the future. The team made the decision to finally make that replacement, flooding the interior space with natural light from the southern facade for the first time. To bring the rest of the interiors to life, the design teams chose to keep the remaining space as open and raw as possible. From the open floor plan studio to lighting placed on the diagonal, numerous features give nod to the building's library's past. Other highlights include meticulous cleaning and repairs to the decorative marble and the structural concrete. Once listed on the Nashville 9 Endangered Sites list by Historic Nashville, 225 Polk Avenue is now a model for adaptive reuse thanks to the creative vision of the ownership team. Excellent job. A preservation award goes to Hathorne at 4708 Charlotte Avenue. This building was constructed in 1948 as a community meeting center known as Fellowship Memorial Hall. It was a popular place where neighborhood residents came together regularly to gather and break bread, and was a welcoming space for the congregation and community members alike. When searching for a location for his new restaurant, Chef John Stevenson connected with the building's history. He envisioned opening a restaurant that would serve the same historic purpose for the community. This theme inspired renovation plans throughout the building, incorporating an open dining area with room for several family-style tables, as well as a separate room for private celebrations. Pews and design elements from the former church next door also give nod to the building's history. The project involved extensive renovation and rehabilitation of both the interior and exterior of the building, requiring everything from new utilities and services to ADA exits. Although many windows had to be replaced, period-appropriate designs were carefully used. This project in particular is not just about the preservation of one building, but also about the preservation of a neighborhood. It is a property that could easily have been demolished to make way for a new development. Thanks to the vision of chef and owner John Stevenson, its legacy of fellowship and community continues. Great work.
Hello, I'm Lynn Maddox, and I currently serve as the Vice Chair of the Metro Historical Commission. It is my pleasure to present fellow Commissioner Bob Allen with a truly exceptional award, one which is rarely given and is only presented to very special people, the Leadership Award in History. Bob Allen was a dear friend to many, many people. It was my honor to sit next to Bob during commission meetings, and it was my privilege to work with Bob and his wife Judy in planning speakers and programs for the Bellevue community. We ran the gamut. They were interested in learning and sharing the history of everything from Vanderbilt Dyer Observatory to the Natchez Trace Parkway. Known to many as Bellevue Bob, Bob served as a Metro Historical Commissioner from 2009 to 2020. He was a longtime Bellevue resident and graduated from both Hillsborough High School and Vanderbilt University. During the 1960s space race, he worked for NASA at the Marshall Space Flight Center in Huntsville, Alabama, and enjoyed a long career as an electrical engineer specializing in microelectronics and semiconductors. If engineering was his first career, then history and genealogy were his second. After retirement, Bob enjoyed a richly packed second phase of life devoted to those passions and to his beloved Bellevue community. He was involved with numerous community organizations, including the Bellevue Chamber of Commerce and the Exchange Club of Bellevue, and he served each as president. For his many civic engagements and devotion to the Bellevue community, the Chamber elected him Citizen of the Year in 2003, and the Exchange Club selected him as Exchangeite of the Year in 2004. He would prove worthy of those accolades time and time again in the years that followed. Bob is closely involved with the Bellevue Middle School, the Edible Learning Lab, the Bell Garden held a special place for Bob and Judy. They developed the Daylily Garden from daylilies propagated by his family back in 1895, as well as the Allen Vodder Victory Garden. Judy and Bob were a formidable team, beginning decades ago by organizing the Friends of Grassmere Wildlife Park, which saved and protected the wildlife before the Nashville Zoo took over management in 1997. Bob was deeply involved and knowledgeable in all things historical and genealogical, and he enjoyed assisting others with research and coaching them through telling their stories, most notably through Author's Corner, which he and Judy founded in 2006, and the popular Bellevue History and Genealogy Group, which held weekly history-related lectures. Bob spearheaded this group and was constantly on the hunt for speakers for the program. A tireless promoter of Bellevue history, he contributed to the interactive history wall at the Bellevue Library and to Bellevue's newspapers, the West View and the View. In 2019, he led the effort for a new historic Bellevue historical marker placed near an 1860s Masonic lodge on Old Harding Road. Sadly, Bob Allen passed away on June 28, 2020. He was a treasured member of the Historical Commission who always supported the office however he could. He was a constant figure at commission events, often bringing Bellevue friends along with him. Bob worked tirelessly on nominations for the annual Preservation Awards held each May during Preservation Month, and he was usually on stage to present at least one award. So it is with deep humbleness and a true honor to present the Leadership in History Award to Commissioner Bob Allen.
Congratulations to all who have received recognition this evening. You have helped preserve our city's heart and soul and have effectively advocated for preserving our past over a mutual concern for the future. A big thank you to everyone who helped make this event happen, MHC Director Walker and the MHC staff, most especially Scarlett Miles, who more than anyone else made this event happen. And also thanks to fellow historical commissioners and historic zoning commissioners, judges, entrants, and others, including Metro ITS Department and Metro Nashville Network, who all have contributed. Lastly, thank you to the many citizens who care deeply about this city and preserving its past. We look forward to seeing you next year in person.